I want to bring Danny Schechter into the conversation to talk about the life and legacy of Nelson Mandela. Danny has made 6 documentaries about Mandela and spent 40 years getting to know the great leader. He was recently invited to South Africa by Mandela himself for the screening of a film about the former president's life, and is the author of Mandiba, A to Z, The Many Faces of Nelson Mandela. Now, Danny, we know what Mandiba was like as a public figure and what he did for the country. What was Nelson Mandela like as a person?
Well, you know, it was very hard to distinguish between his personal life and his political life because he said, the struggle is my life. He organized himself around his commitment to free and to work in the freedom struggle to free the people of South Africa. He was very humble about that. He was always clear that he believed in collective leadership, not individual celebrity. It's you know, wonderful that the world is recognizing him as they are tonight, bringing the world together. But at the same time, it's almost as if nobody really wanted to discuss his contributions before he died. You know, the whole story is about his death, not about his life and his legacy, and it should be. The movie Mandela Long Walk to Freedom is being shown around the world. There was a big royal premiere in London today. He's on everybody's mind, and he's somebody who should be on everybody's mind because he offered a lot to the world in terms of peace, justice, reconciliation. His ideas for change not only were successful in South Africa, but they've inspired so many people around the world. He changed the world, and he changed me too, because he gave me an opportunity to participate with him, to be part of his entourage, to document his achievements in many instances. And it's something that I'll never forget, but it's also something that the world can't forget, because we need Mandelas, plural, in this world, people who are more selfless and who are really committed to the principles of change, not just the principles of personal celebrity.
And Danny, you had just mentioned that he right now is being remembered for his death and what's going on in the present. Can you go ahead and walk us through some of his most notorious accomplishments that made him this great leader?
Well, they weren't really notorious. In many cases, they were very brave, sometimes considered by others to be stupid, when he went from leading a nonviolent movement to leading a violent resistance against apartheid. When he was jailed, and he said to the court, "I am prepared to die for my beliefs." And his lawyers said, "No, don't say that. You're just giving them an excuse." But he said, "No, I'm not saying it for the judges. I'm saying it for the people, to inspire them." And he was sentenced to life imprisonment, you know, on one of the worst prisons in the world. And he survived 18 years. For 10 years, there was no heat. There was no running water in his cells. So this was a man who endured a tremendous deprivation and abuse, and yet emerged from it without hating his jailers, without hating the people who imprisoned him, but calling for a new South Africa, interracial, just South Africa. And I think that was his achievement. That's why even the people who hated him and fought against him, in the end, came to his side and worked with him and admired him. And I think that's what we've seen here, an ability to bring people together of all different backgrounds. And that was his big achievement. You know, South Africa was very poor, very unequal in terms of economics, and it still is to this day. He didn't have a magic wand. He couldn't just change everything just by force of will. But his example and his determination was important in inspiring others to get involved and to stay involved. And not only in South Africa, but in the world. Don't forget, the Free Nelson Mandela movement was a global movement, a movement of people all over the world who fought for his release and for freedom in South Africa. And that's an achievement that was really impressive. I was watching Bono on another channel talking about it. I worked with Bono on the Sun City album in 1986, calling for an end to apartheid. Many artists, many cultural figures were part of that struggle, so to speak, and it's still ongoing. The Long Walk to Freedom is not over, even though the movie ends at a certain time. The actual walk continues for those people who really were moved by Mandela to realize that we need to get together to make change in this world, and that it's only when people move, change comes from below, not from above, not from an anointed celebrity. It comes from people willing to sacrifice and struggle for their beliefs. Mandela embodied that, and that's why he was loved and admired the way he is. That's why President Obama and every president is going to say something nice about him. But the reality is that the problems in South Africa are still very deep, as they are throughout the poorer countries in the world, and we have to care about them as Mandela cared about them.
Danny Schechter, author of Mandiba, A to Z, thank you so much for bringing us your insight.